biz. This is the biz.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of What's the Biz 559, the podcast where innovation meets insight and success stories are told. I'm thrilled to kick off today's episode featuring none other than the remarkable, hungry, humble, smart, the visionary, owner and CEO of my company, y'all. Navigating through our rapidly evolving business landscape can be a daunting path. But fear not, because he is here to illuminate the path forward. With a wealth of experience and a keen eye for opportunity, he has not only carved out a niche for all things business, but he has also established himself as a thought leader in the field. Throughout our conversation today, y'all, we're going to delve into the dynamic world of entrepreneurship and the art of building a thriving business in today's competitive market. And let me tell y'all, his insights are sure to inspire and empower both seasoned professionals and aspiring entrepreneurs. So get y'all's pens and pads out and get ready to take some notes. Without further ado, I want to welcome you guys to my friend, my mentor, the CEO of the company I work for, none other than Dan Mora.
Yes. Happy to have you here, man. Yes.
What is up, Dan? Oh my goodness.
Man. I'm glad to be here. I'm really glad to be here.
We are so happy to have you here.
Some of my favorite people. So.
Yeah,
for sure.
Definitely. The feelings are mutual.
Definitely.
Yeah. So, or let's start with Jay. You have something?
Yeah.
Because I have a whole load of questions that are in my mind.
Let's start off with where are you from, originally from?
Yeah. Okay. I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area. I grew up in the city of Livermore. It's East Bay area, Far East Bay is what we call it. Mm-hmm. Grapes. There's it's the oldest winery in California is in Livermore, California.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Interesting fact.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a blue collar town. Most people commuted out to the Bay Area from there. So that's where I grew up.
Nice.
Yeah.
And so if you're from the Bay, and I know your wife is originally from here, right?
She's from Tulare. Yeah. Born and raised in Tulare.
So how did that happen? Yeah. How did y'all connect?
I moved down here to open a branch office.
Was it on MySpace? MySpace day? No,
long time ago. No, I moved down here to open a branch office for my previous company I worked for.
Yeah.
And so that story, I was here about 5 years, and that's where I met my wife.
Oh,
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
His wife, who's a dear friend of mine, Carrie, her and I went actually to the same school at the same time. I was a freshman. She was a senior. Mm-hmm. So when I got started with the company, we didn't know this about each other, but further along, we just became so tight, so close. She became like a mentor to me as well, a life coach, and she's just as amazing. I love her dearly.
Yeah.
Carrie.
So y'all went to Union, right?
Yeah, we went to Union together. Mm-hmm. She was a senior. She was on her way out. She went to school with my brother-in-law, same graduating class. And and I was a freshman there. And we didn't know each other at the school. But then one time I went to go visit them, she pulled out her yearbook. And she's like, "Is that you?" I was like, "That sure is." Wow, I know, it's so crazy. So yeah, our paths crossed, and she's the one who interviewed me, hired me. Mm-hmm. She saved me from taking a job at the bank. And this was like 13 years ago. Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it was crazy. I loved it though.
It's crazy how things tie in.
Yeah, full circle.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot of things. So Dan had mentored me. We did some mentoring.
Yeah.
And man, I learned a lot from this man. This is insights from somebody who's a successful businessman that started from the ground up.
Yep.
This is a champion story, I should say. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And so, take heed to the things that he says. And so where did you start? Like when you were looking to be were you looking to be an entrepreneur, or were you working at a job? Like, how did this all start?
I kind of was born this way. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think I got entrepreneurship kind of in my blood. It's a family. All my brothers and sisters have started their own businesses. My mom, my dad. kind of just a very maverick kind of way of going through life professionally. I think we're scrappers. So, when you got to do things yourself, you just do things yourself. So I grew up in a really entrepreneurial family. So,
what kind of business was your dad into?
He was an independent contractor. He hung drywall and then put himself through college. He was married young. I was the oldest kid in the family. And, my mom and my dad got married pretty young. So he was hanging drywall supporting us, and then put himself through college. He graduated college when I was about 11. And then he's a chiropractor. So he got his chiropractic degree and started his own small business when I was about 11, 12.
Oh, nice.
Mm-hmm. Always worked though independently, kind of doing construction and mechanics and that sort of thing.
So did he preach these like business stuff to you guys, or do you guys just kind of pick it up by watching him and being in that environment?
He was a good preacher. Yeah. He'd preach. We were very able to think independently. He was very encouraging of us to think independently and to be independent and, have our own way of doing things. But he, starting his business about that age, as a small business, you start from zero. And so he learned a lot, he learned a lot in that time frame, when I was 11 to 17, right before I get out of the house. So he passed on a couple of really key books to me. He had a couple mantras that were, my dad's probably one of my biggest, influences in my life. He had a couple of mantras that were, adages for carpentry. Don't do anything halfway, number one. And then time is money was number two. So those are like, when I think about my dad and like mantras, when you think about your parents, right? Something or some influence, there's a mantra that they kind of gave to you. He gave me that. And then when I was about 17, he handed me a couple of books that they're just super key that really set me in the right direction. Yeah. So those were Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, which is a classic. It's usually on the top 5 of every top business list book. And Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. So those were 2 early books that I read that I got.
How old were you when he gave you?
I was 17, 18.
Wow.
And it's kind of maybe some chance, but I joined the Air Force right out of high school. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And you're kind of, you go from, in my training, you go from base to base and you don't really make friends right away. So I had a lot of like free time. So I'm like, what am I going to do? This is before the internet. So I had a couple books and I started reading, and that was key for me to start kind of studying on my own and being, trying to gain my own knowledge base. That was kind of a really key kind of tip for young entrepreneurs is don't be afraid to read.
Yeah, for sure.
And what I'm hearing from this though is like the family dynamic, for success. It set the tone for you and your how many siblings you have?
Yeah, there's like 6, 7.
Tribe,
It's a winding path, is what it is. So 5 of us grew up together.
Yeah. So at the dinner table, was this business talk and stuff like that, or how? We
were competitive.
That's
for sure. Yeah,
and Dan is very competitive.
Yeah,
we weren't really afraid to be poor. I mean, that's honestly a big thing that I look back at an influence in my life, because we had nothing. There's 5 kids, and my stepmom, she kind of ran the house, and then my dad was out working until I was, teenager, before he started to kind of get some traction in his business. But we were poor. We were very, very had, little means. So that I think is key, because none of us are afraid to be, never too humble.
Right. Definitely humble.
To take a job that other people wouldn't take, to be, to do what you got to do, just hustle and take risks. And when I started the business, I think that was a key moment in my mind. Fast forwarding a little bit, but it was key that I had this choice avenue. Which avenue do I take? Do I go get a job? Which I could. It's easy. To me, that was the easy route.
Right.
The more difficult route was starting a business, and I felt really confident. So I remember making that in my mind. Well, I got to do something different here. do I go get a job or do I start a business?
And how old were you when you first?
I was 26 when I started.
And you were
my
confident
business.
to do it at 26. Was it doubt? Was there any? You was just like, no, this is what it is.
Yeah, I think I learned. I learned to be committed. And the things that you set your mind on, and things that you want to do. And again, it was either it was all in getting starting a business or getting a job. So yeah, I was all in. I was committed. It's a little naive, understanding what is necessary to start a business. Yeah. So a little naive, but fear. Again, I wasn't afraid of being poor. Right. I wasn't afraid of starting over. Mm-hmm. It's just work, at least, from a basic level when you start. Mm-hmm. But yeah, and there wasn't really a plan B. I was all in. And
this is before, hearing this stuff now, it's like, a youngster might be like, oh, that's nothing. But this is before YouTube. This is before the free motivation that everybody gets now. You know what I'm saying? You had to pay for it back then.
That's a good point.
Because you had to pay for it. They had events like the big conferences. You had to pay for the conference. And even if you went, you had to pay for the tapes.
Yeah.
And so this is before all that time. So for you to find that, that niche and not be that fearful, at such an early age is amazing.
Yeah.
That's great.
I think you got to have a little bit of, you got to be able to take the risk. You got to have a little fearlessness.
Yeah.
I think, even if it's a little fake it before you make it, all right, I'm going to try this out. I'm going to really give it my all. So,
and that has really led you to have a business to take it from, I know when I started was like 30 employees to 350 now?
No, we're about 300.
300?
Yeah,
okay.
About 300.
We're growing so fast. I can't keep up, but the numbers are huge. And within a course of, since I've been there 13 years, that's big. And I know you've got some big goals for the company and stuff. So
coming up on 20 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
20 years for the company.
20 years. Wow.
20 years in a month, in June 1st.
And so was that your first business that you started?
No,
Gemini?
actually. Let's say right before that I had, right before that was kind of a pivotal time. I was working, I got out of the Air Force when I was 23. And immediately I was going to be a chiropractor. I mentioned my dad's a chiropractor, my grandfather's a chiropractor, my great grandfather, my uncle, my great uncle. So family chiropractors. So I wasn't really, I didn't want to stay in the Air Force, but I needed to get out and I felt like I needed a direction. And so I was going to be a chiropractor. And that kind of fell apart when I got home. I got home and I had to like sleep on the couch. And I was like, this ain't cool. I need to get a job. I need to go make some money. So I get my own place, So I just hustled for a few years between 23 and 26. I worked graveyard at Home Depot. I worked for my brother. He has a successful business even at that time. Couple of other jobs. And then I did start a business and it was a blind cleaning and sales and installation, like mini blinds and, vertical blinds, that sort of thing. And it was kind of a shoot off of my brother's business. He worked residential doing windows. And like I said, kind of successful. So it was a good cross-reference opportunity. So I borrowed a little money and I started up and it lasted just a few months. It was not working. It was not working. I mean, think about it. You think about your own house. How often do you change your blinds?
Right.
Never, right?
Right.
I'll move before I change those blinds, man.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
It's not in demand.
It's not right. There's not a need for it out there.
I mean, I wore out at least one pair of shoes, like put holes in shoes, just passing out flyers in neighborhoods and got no business. It was terrible.
Wow.
It was really bad. Like I just chose the wrong marketing.
Yeah.
And you was trying to convince them, like, don't you need those chains?
Don't you need those blinds? You need those chains. They're getting a little dusty.
Oh man, let me come look. Those are nasty.
Yeah.
Nah, so that was going on and it just wasn't going anywhere. And I happened upon the industry I'm in now. So that was a big change. Obviously, this is where I'm at now, 23 years later. But yeah, I stumbled upon as a friend of a friend and, he was like, hey, I heard you got your own business. And I was like, yeah, I heard you got your own business. And he says, oh, well, call me if you need anything. And, he offered me a job eventually, and I served subpoenas. That's where I started serving subpoenas and scanning records out in San Jose area, Bay Area, and that sort.
Yeah. So there was no background. You came from a whole different background, and then it started from that job. And when was the enlightening moment where you were like, I can do this?
Pretty quick. Because I just kind of felt like the entrepreneurship was really in me. And I think I was always kind of striving for something to start my own. And as I got introduced to it, the things that intrigued me was that it was a business to business relationship as opposed to what I was used to, which is business to, B2C, which is customers, direct to customer in homes, home services, construction. So business to business was like something that really kind of piqued my interest pretty immediately, and working with professionals. So working with attorneys, that both of those things kind of caught me pretty quick. I was like, this is different. Mm-hmm. This is different than, I was a mechanic in the Air Force. This is different than turning a wrench. This is different than swinging a hammer. This is something I can, I don't have to beat my body up to do.
Right.
I can, use my mind. And so that was kind of intrigued me. The guy that hired me, and I'm sure I know he regrets this because he told me that he was like, yeah, so you can learn this and you could start your own. That's what he said. And
yeah. And that's what you did.
You did what he said.
I worked there for a couple of years, and I was happy. I'm happy to kind of follow. I think that's a really important thing for leadership, is to know how to follow other people. Because when you're a leader, you're expecting other people to follow you, so I was actually kind of satisfied, working for him, except that it was a pretty toxic, at the time it was pretty toxic, and situations just came up. I worked there for 2 years. First year and some change, I was in operations and management. After serving subpoenas and scanning records, I moved into the office, and then I moved into the sales side of the industry. And that actually was where things really took off for me. I had no sales experience. So actually getting my first month was really pivotal. I got a bunch of new accounts. I was like, yeah, I can do this, and that gave me a lot of confidence. So,
and some of our clients still remember and still have your original card from 20 or when you started, like even when you came out to the Central Valley area.
Yeah.
They still remember like everything, and they still love him. They, may not see him as much, but they still love, Dan and the assistants, and paralegals in the office still talk about him, still talk about your kids, how young they were when you first started. Yeah. So definitely left that mark on them. The relationship, sure. The relationships are huge.
That's huge
for sure.
Yeah, relationships.
Yeah. So let's get into a little bit of your principles that you live by, and a little bit in life, but more so in business. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. Yeah.
What are some key principles that you live with? Let's start with just you as a person first.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a great question, and so I've a couple of areas of the business that I was slow to let go of. And one of them was HR, because it was really important for me to hire the right people, get the right people into the business. And that has shown to be hugely profitable, meaning we have amazing tenure. We're beating national averages on tenure and internal promotions. I mean, 3 times national averages we're beating as a company. So it's awesome. So setting that culture, I think it's super important that I have to live the culture in order to promote it to other people. But from even before I had my own business, I was doing interviews for, positions, recruiting. And literally the first and maybe 80% of the interview is for me to determine if this person is honest. Okay. So probably the biggest and most important thing is to work with people that you can trust. And I like to grant a lot of trust at the beginning. And because I think that helps people. I think it's like, look, I trust you, do your thing, do the best that you can do. Gets people moving, I think, faster. But you really can't build off of any relationship, business or personal, without trust and building that. So that's probably my first, one of my first principles, values that I like to put forth. There's a couple of others, like one of the early principles in business that I liked, that I was really focused on, was respect. And that's kind of it's such a weird, you'd think a no-brainer,
Right.
But it's not. If anybody's been out in the world and worked for anybody else, usually there's levels of respect that you're just like, what's wrong with this place?
Yeah.
Definitely.
What's wrong with this place?
Yeah.
And my leadership learning path really started, early. I kind of mentioned it before, but when I was in the Air Force, I saw hundreds and hundreds of ways and styles of leadership, like hundreds. And that was a huge learning experience. And I realized that the one thing that people kind of missed, foundationally core, was just a level of respect. Like, I'm looking at you as a human. I'm looking at you as a human. I have some respect and empathy for you as a human. And I knew that was going to be something that that was going to differentiate me as a business owner. As I'm recruiting people, as I'm placing an ad and people are answering and coming into the office and interviewing, from the time they walk in, my job is to make sure that they understand this is going to be a healthy place for them. Or it's a place where they can be respected. But that's been a competitive advantage. Again, it seems like it should be a no-brainer, really common sense. But egos really get in the way of people, and especially business owners. It happens.
Definitely. And that's one thing I can, my little time of knowing you, is one thing I noticed off top was, in your position, there was no reason for you to talk to me. You know what I'm saying? There was no reason for you to do what you did to help me. You know what I'm saying? And I, from right there, I was like, wow, that's different. And then when we started talking, like, the way you talked, you was super, I would say, more worried about, not worried, but more aware of my feelings of something, right? And so you knew a roundabout way to ask certain questions, and I was like, man, it wouldn't hit me till later. I was like, that's what Dan was asking me. Okay, but he was going, you know what I'm saying? He did it in a way where it didn't make me feel a certain way, but that's very cool that you're aware, that you're that aware of those things. Because people, man, like how you just said, people don't care. We'll say things that cut. We say things that, you know what I mean? And
it's sad, And we've had, people are all different, but I've had situations. I remember an early situation where there's just a little bit of toxic stuff going on in the office. And I'm like, I've heard this said before, and I think it's true, but culture is what you allow. The culture that happens at your company is what the people that are responsible, what you allow. And it can get, nasty and degrade.
Yeah.
And I remember a situation, and I had to fire somebody just because I told them once, I'd not give a second chance, of course, but this person was just like not talking nice about one of their coworkers. And it was like, yeah, we can't have that.
Yeah.
It got under my skin so bad. I was like, do I really need to deal with this? It's like, is this just kind of how it's supposed to be? Like, it doesn't feel right.
What if that person's a great worker and bringing you in all kind of money? Would it still affect you?
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, definitely. Because I think honestly, what our legacy, and I feel like this is so true, but our legacy is how we treat, others.
Right.
And I have a business, like I don't have to make a certain profit number. If I'm making profit, that's fantastic. That's more than I have ever dreamed about profit wise. So I can sacrifice. You got an excellent worker, somebody that's really, really good and makes a lot of money for the business. I'm willing to sacrifice, a couple percentages of profit just to get that toxicity kind of out of the mix. You know what I mean?
Right.
So the culture in the company, in our company, it's huge. It's something we talk about freely. It's something we talk about. It's important. It's top tier. How do you feel like it contributes to the success of our company. And I say our because you make us feel like it is our company. We go out there, we represent. I say it's mine. Like, that's just how you have grown us to be. Like, so how does it?
It directly correlates to success. Directly correlates to success. People will work harder naturally for people they respect, for people that they care about, in an environment that is healthy and encouraging. So I look at it this way. I think, I had to come to terms with every employee is separate in their own, but I should expect a certain percentage of their full effort. And my line in the sand per se is like 80%, because people are going through things. They have seasons. They're going through rough stuff, whatever. But if I get 80% of you, that's pretty good. That's actually good. And I think that is, you want to shoot for more, of course. And everybody, I mean, I don't know what percentage of my employee population is at that 100%, 120%. But I knew that if I could get performance at about like that 80% mark, that I'd probably beating most businesses, competitively, you know what I'm saying? So if I provide an environment, if I provide the tools and everything for employees to be baseline, like 80% productive for every hour, they're, 80% of that hour is fully productive, then I'd be beating competition.
I remember you always used to tell us, I'm renting 8 hours from you. That's all I ask. Just the 8, and us salespeople, we're salary. So it's like, we always wanted to go above and beyond, but you're like, I'm only asking, I'm renting you for 8 hours. Yeah. And what's important to you is work-life balance.
Yes.
It's important that I remember, you mentored me a lot back in the day. And whenever I had a season, I was going through a season where I'm like, I don't know which direction I want to go in the company. I don't know what I'm doing. And you would, spit facts at me and you're like, well, what's important to you? You would always ask me the question, like, what's important to you? Is it important for you to, work and provide for your family? Because your family's important and they are always number one. But there's also, you have to work because your family's important so you can provide, and just little nuggets like that. But it was huge.
The work-life balance is super important.
Yes.
Yeah. And I've been in burnout situations. I think we can all relate to burnout situations and seasons where we've been in burnout, and you just don't get, you don't get that effort. And again, people are just going through stuff. Right. So you got to make sure that I got to make sure that I create an environment that says, hey, this is enough. Enough is enough. The 40 hours a week, that's your baseline. Yeah. Sometimes I work 60, sometimes I work 30, but that balance is pretty important.
And you've adopted that culture aspect early on, I feel like, versus other businesses. I'm just now hearing a lot of businesses talk about culture and, and include it in, their companies. But like, even big Fortune 500 companies, they're just now paying attention and grasping how important culture is within their organization. Yeah. And that's one thing about you, when you learn pretty quick and you implement, and, if it's something that's going to be good for us, you definitely are, you implement it quick, and we got to jump on that.
Yeah, for sure.
When you were starting your business and how you're saying balancing that lifestyle, right? So how did that go relationship wise with your wife? And were you starting a family at that time? Did you have kids at that time? Like, what was going on?
Yeah, my ex-wife and I were expecting our first when I started the business, and cards are on the table. It's serious time. Yeah. But she was. I think it's kind of part of my natural rhythm to do to do the 8 to 10 kind of hours a day. It's part of my natural rhythm. I want to have relations with my family, and there's push and pull there. there's push and pull there. There's definitely weeks, again, like I said, you're doing 60 hours, sometimes more than that. And yeah, it's hard. Yeah, I think it naturally strains most relationships.
And even now too, like you work a lot.
Yeah.
But now you've been able to take off hats. I mean, within the last 5 to 7 years, you've been able to take off your HR hat to a certain extent, take off your finance hat, the sales hat.
Difference is I make my own problems now.
Oh,
I think
Lord.
That's what happens. I'm like, I gave that away. And then I decided to just create another problem.
Yeah.
Like,
that's
I'm
what
bored.
we do though, man.
I'm bored.
That's what we do. Yeah.
I think too, I think about this, am I going to stop working at some point? I don't know. I don't know if that's even possible. Like,
what would you do with yourself?
I kind of think like I'm going to work my way into gardening. That's
shoot.
And then we're going to start a business, right?
Then you're going to start a business from gardening?
I told my wife, I said, this
food.
is a hobby farm. So
Okay.
we got to put hobby at the beginning of all that stuff.
There you go.
We start something after. But no, I think, I have to remind myself too that how much you and the rest of the company are impacted by my engagement. And that's something I have to remind myself because I tend to be kind of a set it and forget it type of person. And that's just not really, that's not life. Like if you're tending the garden, man, you pick whatever garden you pick, you got to tend that garden. So, and I like what I do and I like, contributing to people's life, being part of their story, being part of their professional story. So I don't know if I'll ever stop.
It's hard even thinking about you not being around. I know I speak for a lot of us on the team where we're like, we just need more of Dan. But we also understand that we're growing at a rapid pace and, for us to get from where we are now to even where you want us to be in 5-10 years, it's going to require, at least I understand it's going to require you to be in other places. Yeah. But man, when we get that time with you, it's like, it's golden. Yeah. Everybody's like, I'm a little selfish too, because I know I'm your favorite. we won't put that out there, but I know I am. Everybody, no, I'm just kidding. But anyway, when we get that time with you, whether it be at conventions, conferences, whatever it is, fun times. And that's why I like too, sales means this is just off record, but not off record. But when we have sales meetings and things, they host dinners at their house. Mm-hmm. So it's nice because we get, that more intimate, organic time with our leaders and executives. And, Dan and Carrie will host the dinners at their house. And so it's really special. I don't know how many, CEOs or leaders are inviting their whole teams to their house just to give them that one-on-one or just to give them that time. It's really special. It really is.
That changes too over time. It's hard.
It's hard.
Like old clients, the where's Dan at?
Oh yeah.
And you have employees. Where's Dan at?
Yeah.
And then, at smaller, we had an amazing holiday party this year. It was amazing.
It was so good.
400 people at the Train Museum in Sacramento.
It was amazing.
And I think that, I hate to say it, but those are going to be more common per se than like the intimate home type of stuff.
Yeah.
Things grow.
It's all good. I personally just enjoy the time that we did have as a team.
You got early access.
Yeah, I'm grandfathered in. I got my own room.
So how did you trick the first people to start working with you? I always say that because I always admire that. Like, was it more so that you were paying them for the time, or did they see the vision and they just started working with you, and then eventually the money started coming in? How did that work?
I was we had to make money from the get, so I immediately had to go find clients immediately. Right. It was not really an option. I had some money, but not a lot. And I borrowed a lot. a lot along the way. Yeah. But yeah, when I would interview people back in them days, they didn't even have like online advertising for employees. So you would do, I think Craigslist.
I got found on Craigslist.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, you had the newspaper. I forget where else we would do where we would advertise, but you get somebody on the hook.
Yeah.
And then they show up at the office and they're like, what is this place? Like,
that's what I did.
Yeah, and they're like,
what
is this place for real?
Yeah.
There's a lot of stories that people think that's pretty funny. I think it's funny too.
It is.
So, but I know that I was aware of that. So I'd bring somebody in and I'd just like go to work and I'd be like, okay, I'm going to tell you what you want to hear. Not what you want to hear. I'm going to tell you what you should hear to know that this is a place that, I mean, I'm committed to. I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to treat you well. I'm going to expect honesty. I'm going to expect like that you're going to work. Right. And for that, I'll pay you, that's, I promise that's the deal, right? You put in your hours and at the end of the period, I give you a paycheck. And, I think, I convinced a few suckers early on. I don't know what it was. I don't know. I don't know if I got something different that I offer. I don't know what it is. I don't know. I like to. I don't know if I connect quickly with people.
Yeah.
I try to. I think that's a genuine effort that I try to make to connect with people and let them know that they're seen. That I have care for them. And then you go from there. You build on reputation. You build on that day to day. Like they're coming into work. How you doing? You all right? And the next day, how you doing? Everything all right? Can I get you anything? How you doing? And that builds over time. It builds out that loyalty that I'm going to be there for you. You're going to be there for me. You know what I'm saying?
And that's the beginning of the culture too, right?
Yeah. And the culture, I would say, it's really interesting. You mentioned that about bigger companies, Danica, that I. It was probably a decade, I want to say, and I could be a little bit off, but I don't think I literally wrote down my core values, my vision and mission for several years after I started the business. So what I had to do, what I knew I had to do when people had to ask questions about the vision, about the mission, I was really quick to be prepared to talk to them. And if we had group meetings, that was also a huge opportunity. I was like, okay, I got to make sure they know there is a vision, make sure they know there is a mission, make sure there is a core values. And then coaching along the way, you hire leaders and you hire managers and people act wrong or they act right and you give them positive reinforcement for acting right and, coach people,
Yeah.
So coaching is something that's really big too, that I've learned even in the company is, it's something that happens when, Dan's vision or the whole mission of the company is, hard on the process, not on the people. So when someone makes a mistake, it's not like you're automatically canned. Yeah. I think that's what differentiates us too from a lot of other businesses is, if there's a process written, it's to be followed. And if someone makes a mistake, there's always going to be a mistake when humans are doing, the work. But the hard on the process, not on the person is really big and also contributes to that culture atmosphere because we're going to train you and we're going to make sure that and coach you and make sure that you understand the process and how it's written. And if you have a better idea or an idea and we want to hear about it so we can either implement it to make sure that it works with what we're doing. But that's huge with culture. And I think that's a part of too, how we get a lot of good people to stay with us because, you make a mistake, you're not just going to get canned or reprimanded for it. No, we're going to try and teach you and coach you. And I've been coached too a lot with things. And I think it's great. I don't look at it as, oh my God, I'm in trouble. Yeah. It's more of, no, this leader is trying to help me be better and trying to help so I can grow within the company if I want to, take part of entrepreneurship or whatever it is. They give you that's what that trust gets built there as well.
Yeah. And it sounds like you got a real thing of like how you say entrepreneur. It feels like you are your own entrepreneur within a business.
Absolutely. So that's dope. That's how I feel too. That's the mindset that I have within the company. It's like, especially it wasn't, it's more evident to us now and we have the opportunity to do that now. But when I first started with the company, I had no idea what I was doing. They put me in a room and they were like, just answer the phones. And, if a client has a problem, then help them with it pretty much. And so I had all this time, But then, I had some ideas. I shared the ideas, and the manager was like, well, okay, well, they trusted me to build this department.
Yeah.
And that's still going now. But they helped me, and they helped me grow within the department. And and also I think just being available too within the company. As soon as you know that there is an opportunity to grow, speak up, and this is the company that will definitely try and get you to that next level. Yeah. So they care about the people. That's really what I'm trying to say, is the people. And it starts from the top, caring about people and wanting them to grow in whichever way they want to. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think for the entrepreneurs out there, don't be afraid to get help. Don't be afraid to go talk to people. I actually think that that's something that most entrepreneurs don't do. And I think maybe it's an ego thing. I don't know. Something that really I found myself in small circles as I was in year one. I joined, this was pretty neat. In Clovis, there was a entrepreneurial training program at an incubator in Clovis. And I would drive from Visalia to Clovis. It was like 3 days a week it was like 3-4 hours for 9 weeks. It was intensive. And it was a small class, right? There's a lot of people starting businesses out there, but people that go and find resources and don't stop asking questions and understand from the community around you. It's really, really important. My attorney to this day was a man that he taught the legal portion of that. So the first year in business, so 20 years ago, the guy that taught the legal portion of that class, he's still one of my attorneys. That's pretty neat.
Nice.
Yeah. So, and that was successive. I went from the entrepreneurial training program to a mentor program, to then another mentor program. And that led me to actually a really breakthrough moment. We hired I went to a class, and the guy speaking just spoke right at me. And most of the things that Danique is talking about, practically and specifically speaking from a business mechanics perspective, hard on process, not on people, really important, was given to me from a mentor that I went to a class. He just blew the roof off of what I thought was business was all about, and hired him, and we worked with him for several years, very, very tightly. Yep. George Beardsley.
Yeah. He was really good. Yeah, very, very good.
Yeah, we haven't even really established what exactly the business is for the people. You know what I mean?
Yeah. The short version, we work for, we help attorneys that represent injured workers in work accidents. And we help the attorneys that represent them. We help them get the evidence for their cases. We also help injured workers by providing a vocational rehabilitation program. And then we do some technology in the industry. We provide a free filing platform for the whole industry, statewide. But yeah, we have hundreds of attorneys that we call our clients. Yeah.
Nice.
We're expanding too. So we're expanding into, broadly speaking, we're legal services. We try to focus on a particular type of attorney and what do they need, like their ecosystem per se. And just about 1.5 years ago, we just expanded into the civil litigation side of things, which is personal injury, probate, family law, and landlord tenant. So we'll help those types of attorneys with legal services that they may need. And that's like serving subpoenas, getting records. Yeah.
Yeah.
So anytime dealing with attorneys and legal things, the word ethics comes up a lot. So switching gears into more of an ethical frame of mind here. So we base our company off ethics, and that's something that just cannot be wavered. And something that you've taught us that's definitely number one is how we represent ourselves and just staying true to that. What steps do you take to stay updated with ethics in the industry? That's relevant to the industry.
Yeah. I mean, it's a foundation. in my sales career, sales, I don't know if this is true for all sales, but at least in our type of sales, working with attorneys, you're going to be put in some situations that aren't, you're like, this kind of tickles my spidey senses. I'm not sure this is the right thing to do.
It's wild out there, y'all.
It's wild. And I mean, it can be as simple. I remember this one situation, this law firm was playing us off of a competitor, and they would, every meal that we would treat them for lunch, but every lunch happened to be like a higher request every time they would ask. And I was just like, I don't want to play this game. This is a game that, maybe I really want this client, right? But if they don't value me or value the company for what the company's bringing, they just want their cool lunch, their yummy lunch. Like, all right, maybe not the client for us. That I remember that, like, there's this switch that flipped in my mind. I was like, yeah, we're just going to be a different company, I guess, than some of the other people.
Yeah.
But yeah, ethics, staying up to date, I think it really just starts, it's a lot of common sense, right? When you're flirting with the wrong way, going the wrong way. And if you give people a solid, which we do through our culture, through our core values, if you give people really solid, if you hire people that are honest, and you make sure that you tell them, hey, that's what we require, you just keep kind of beating that drum, for lack of a better term. And people, that they align with it. I realize I'm the drummer here. I didn't realize people are going to watch me for what I, want them, how I want them to act in the business. And so, yeah, it is important. It's been really important to us.
Sometimes it's hard. It's not as easy too, because you are put in some crazy situations out there to where you're like, man, I need the work.
Yeah.
But we do have to remember too, that we are a leading company, and we have to stay true to.
I think relationships don't have to go there.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So we can have good relationships and we don't have to go there.
Right.
So that's kind of what I would tell folks when in the early stages, when we actually only had a very basic product that was barely on par with competitors, right? So both of us are going into the same prospect. We're both nice people. They offer maybe a little bit more on the gratuity side, nicer lunch. I knew we were on level ground there, except what I would tell people and how I would approach it is that I'm just going to make sure that this relationship is solid. And even if I'm not going to give them what they want, I'll come back and I'll keep coming back. And I hope that they appreciate that. In the background, from a company perspective, I had to be really intentional about creating value, about making sure that the product continued to increase and improve. Early on, that just wasn't possible. We just didn't have the money. We wouldn't get the client that somebody else would get. So it's been a really long overnight success to get a very solid product line that our clients really can rely upon. Because at the bottom, at the base foundational level, they just need a good product and they need it on time. I think, okay, that's what we have to deliver on first, and the relationship, of course.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was tough.
Yeah. Let's talk about servant leadership.
Okay.
This is one of my faves, because this is, you've been the mirror of that for us, the servant leadership. You talked about it. I didn't know really a lot about it until, the last several years, but something that I have even brought over into like my personal life. I mean, a lot of the things that I've learned at work, I call my job like an institution when it comes to like education, and a lot of the principles that I learn at work, I have implemented in my personal life. And one of them being servant leadership, and how it's, just to narrow it down, it's like, as the leader of the company, like, help me help you. Like what do you need from me? Like, let me go and get that for you type of thing.
Yeah.
So, how do you define servant leadership and how does it influence your leadership style?
It's key. It's really, it's critically important. And the way I define it, I think we all have a tendency to say to ourselves or say to any situation, what's in it for me? Mm-hmm. And at some point, I think it had to flip for me, that when I serve others, that it has its own reward intrinsically, whether or not I get something in return. Mm-hmm. So that going first, that being a servant first before expecting anything in return, was a culture, in fact, that I identified in me personally, but I also identified it in the company. I remember walking through a department, a couple of departments, and I had this feeling that it was what's in it for me kind of attitude in the department. And I remember going to Jeff Pierce at that time, and I said, "Hey, we need a culture of service. You know, I don't want people to, and I don't want this place to be a place where there's a tit for tat. There's always somebody expecting something from everybody else. If we all actually served one another, then that will have, number one, its own reward. We will treat each other better." But then we're as we touch the work and as we're working on what we need to be doing for income, that's just going to come, that's just going to be a byproduct. And then I ran across servant leadership. There's an essay by a guy named Robert Greenleaf. And I ran across his essay that's titled Servant Leadership, and it just blew me away. I was like, this is exactly what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So for your listeners, and your viewers, like Robert Greenleaf, Servant Leadership is what I ran across. There's a lot of, there is a lot of other ways that people talk about servant leadership, but for me, that's kind of how that's how it started. For me. And then that's how I try to be. I mean, I know that all of my employees are my client. Mm-hmm. All of my clients are my client. I own them all, but I encourage that for every employee, that they do the same, that they own, that their clients are the entire organization, that the clients of the business are theirs as well. They're all their responsibility.
And so how when you establish that into your business, because business is kind of like a tick for tack, right? Like, I do this for you, and then this is my service. So was it more so like you reestablishing it all the time? Like, were you reminding the work? So that's how you develop that culture, right?
Yeah, I kind of mentioned before that I tend to be kind of a set it and forget it type of person. And so I would I remember, in the old days, and still I try to at least document what I'm trying to communicate. And I would give it to people, and I'd do whatever I could, and give it to them, and I'd be like, okay, great, we're good now, right? Like, no. Yeah. We all have some of us have had toddlers, and you can't say things once. Yeah. It's a concept that's so important that I call it a drum beat. There's a lot of things that are just drum beats for the organization, and I'm just beating the drum. And that's one of them. That's that servant leadership type of thing that, we're gonna go first. Right. It's also tied into my how I teach about leadership. Yeah. When I teach about it's in the word, right? Servant leadership. Mm-hmm. But we have 2 core values. We have 6 core values. I'm going to get in trouble for not knowing the exact number.
It's 6.
But okay. Leadership and service are separate core values. And when I talk about leadership, it automatically slides right into service. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Respect, commitment, leadership, excellence, service, integrity.
Yeah.
And I love that part of the training too, when we was doing our thing, because it was like, you were sharing some of the values, and then I would be like, okay, let me think about it, and then I'll come back the next time we meet, and I'm like, I can do this, I can do that, but I don't know about how I feel with that. And you would never be like, no, that's not right. No, that's not. It was just more so like, let me give you some things to think about.
Yeah.
And
I like to say it's a way. Like, I'm teaching a way. It's not the way. Right. It's just a way. Everybody's got, this was interesting. I think this is an interesting tip for young entrepreneurs. Okay. Most young entrepreneurs are slightly paranoid that somebody's going to steal their idea and the way they do things. The truth of the matter is you are just as unique as you are is exactly how unique that your business is going to look and feel like. And nobody's going to do it the same way that you're going to do it. And I think entrepreneurs get hung up on that. They get hung up that, somebody's already thought of it. Somebody's already going to do it. There's already competition in the market. Yeah, but they're not going to do it like you.
Yeah.
Are they?
Right.
Yeah. I hope we're
tapping into the creative. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Pretty important.
That is.
So you talked about this a little bit. How do you empower? And I mean, I know the answer for how I feel, but for our viewers and listeners, how do you empower and support your employees to reach their full potential? Either within the company or personal, or just as a person.
Yeah. That's so fun to do. I mean, that is literally one of the reasons I get out of bed. I know I'm going to have some impact on somebody today, and that gets me out of bed. And it's really assisting and coming alongside them, right? Okay, I see you for who you are. You trust me, I trust you. Okay, let's talk about kind of what you want out of your life. In general, most people want a sense of growth in their life. So that's the one thing I can do. If I'm just walking through the office, one thing I hope that people gain from me is that I'm there to work on their behalf in order to provide a place that growth is going to happen. When I get more specific, and that gets really fun. So and Jonathan's gone through this, but I have them write their top 5 life commitments. And that is an exercise. And I ask a fun question people when they do that. And this is just a cool exercise because people are like, all right, I'll play your game. I'm like, hey, what's your top 5 life commitments? They're like, I'm like, don't overthink it. Just write down your top 5. Right. And there's no wrong answers, because what this turns into is it's a journey of discovering what it is that you're committed to. I ask a fun question. I say, do your actions reflect your commitments? And that gets people, because they're like, actually about 90% of the time people say, this is what they say. They say, most of the time my actions reflect my commitments. I said, I gotcha. Right. Because 100% of the time your actions reflect your commitments. There's just something that you put out in the side that you don't feel good about. And usually that's nothing like crime based. It's like leisure. I feel bad about watching too much TV or playing too many video games. And we have to recalibrate that and say those actions reflect what you're committed to. Let's just give you the benefit of the doubt and say those actions are there to feed your commitment to your own mental health. Because usually that's what people are doing when it comes to leisure. But the real question is that in balance? The reason you probably feel bad about it, you don't feel good about doing too much of that, is because it's out of balance with the rest of your life commitments. So we free focus on those sorts of things. And the people that I have the opportunity to do one-on-ones with, we just go through that and refine it and try to find what works for them. And the key is, in my opinion, is you can't lead others, because entrepreneur is a leader. You can't lead others until you can lead yourself. And you can't lead yourself until you know what it is that you're doing. If your actions are not improving how you're leading others or how you're leading yourself, you need to know that. So big part is to start with like a high level of self-awareness, high level of self-awareness, and then focus those actions. That early book that I told you my dad gave me is called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And I'll ruin it for everybody. It's a shortcut.
But you need to hear it over and over and over.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
You got to.
The book teases you the whole way. So that's why I do this. That's why I tell people about it. It teases you the whole way. But it says basically that you want to have a really clear vision for your life. And everything you do should feed that vision. It's like, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, well, what am I doing not to feed the vision? Okay, let me make the list and start fixing it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think feeding, I mean, I think I talked around your question. But.
This is actually the lessons that we get during company meetings too. Like when we get, when Dan comes on and talks, or even some of the other executives, they get on. We have our president has his Tony talks or talk.
I'm just saying,
with Tony. And there's just like some golden nuggets that he leaves us with. And actually one of them too, I don't remember if you were on this one, but one of them was talking about not being petty. And I was like, dang, I wanted to be petty so bad one time. And then I heard Tony's like, don't be petty. And he's, just little things. But these are the lessons that we get during our time together in meetings within the company. And this is when he has, we have these all ops meetings. And this is the time that, of course, they're still pretty transparent on numbers and how we're doing as a company and, things of that nature of, hiring and celebrations. But it's these lessons that we get from the top, and there's so many people that appreciates that time and that lesson that we get.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just, the influence, or I'm sorry, it's basically how you get us to reach our full potential.
Yeah. I mean, and that, I think everybody intrinsically wants to reach their full potential. Mm-hmm. That to me is like gold. I'm like searching the room. Okay, you want to reach your full potential? Let's do that. You want to reach your full potential? Let's do that. So that's fun. I mean, that's a blast for me. Yeah. It's a blast for me.
And he has those one-on-one meetings too with whoever really wants that time. Mm-hmm. Like he'll make the time for people to get on his calendar and let's meet 30 minutes. Like, that's huge. I think it's really huge coming from someone with so much knowledge and a busy schedule, but makes that time for people. Like you said earlier, like he knew nothing about you. You could have just been some, guy that's not even really trying to make it in life, but and he took the time to meet with you and just, give you, just be there,
Right.
Yeah. Big.
What sets you apart, like with your business, like you mentioned, not to be afraid to jump into businesses and stuff. So there obviously was other businesses that did what you do. Mm-hmm. So what sets you apart in your business, would you say?
Yeah. Like I kind of said, that every entrepreneur is a little unique and they bring their character to the business. And I've learned over the years, I've had a really hard time answering that question early on, really hard time. Because this has been a journey of self-discovery. And, a few things I think make me unique. I'm not afraid to ask questions. I'm not afraid to go find resources. And I'll ask anybody, anytime, anywhere. I think that time is really worth it. People feel like they need to choose between, the physical aspect of the work and the working like on the business, which is building the business. Well, building it is like listening to podcasts or reading books or talking to people that actually have done what you've done. So that's something that I think that I've that at least the business, I think, has taken a character that is not afraid, or tell her, that not afraid to talk to anybody. Open door policy for the entire organization. There's a few other things I think, respect, again, that pettiness that you pointed out, is just, there's no room for it. There's no room for, egos. We all bring to the table some amount of ego. I don't think that it would be wrong for me to say that we can't have ego. Like, it is there. The trick is to harness that ego into service to others. I don't, it's still actually a pretty hard question. What makes us unique?
Yeah.
A few things, we're really good with people. Like I said, we have that, we just found this out like a few months ago, which is amazing, that we've been beating national averages on retention, internal promotions. I mean, huge. We knew that was important, and we knew that we were actually probably better than most. And then to find out that we were slaying it, wow. We're like, okay, all right. So people, we're not afraid to usher the right amount of people for the job. Another thing that I guess is important that I try to tell people, new hires specifically, is that you need the right tools for the job. Really, really need the right tools for the job, and never be afraid to ask for those things. Yeah. And I think that some business owners, that they're cheap or whatever, or managers are cheap, and they're like, nah, you could do with what, the tools that you have. I grew up around carpentry and mechanics. Like, you got to have the right tools. You got to, really important. Yeah. Makes your life twice as hard.
And just also like knowing, with other organizations, just in talking to people, about their day at work or whatever the case is, it's like, businesses seems like they really focus on just their clients or their customers, not much going on within the organization, not much, leading, not much growing, not much, just paying attention to what your employees need and to be better for you, and for your business. Yeah. So I think that really makes us unique too as a company, is that the amount of time and resources that you guys put into us, it's huge. It's a lot of time, a lot of resources that you guys really implement for us to be able to grow personally, professionally. Yeah. So,
we have high engagement, I guess, is the other way to talk about that. Engagement's a big business buzzword. And the engagement just is amazing.
With your engagement with who? With your employees?
Yeah, employee engagement, and like they understand the business. They understand what's going on with the business. They participate when we have events and such. We try to be super inclusive. I think we hear from new employees, they're usually like, wow, this place is incredibly like engaging, inclusive, friendly, easy to talk to. Right. And that's just, that's great. Fantastic. And that is unique, I think, Yeah. We got big dreams too. We're growing, and that's pretty unique. We're not afraid. Again, my entrepreneurial spirit, like, still, when people ask me, it's common for people to say, you're an attorney because you work in the legal service. No, I'm not an attorney. I'm an entrepreneur. I mean, I'd quickly answer that. I'm an entrepreneur. Wow. Yeah. So,
what do you think is, what qualities should an entrepreneur possess? Yeah.
I always start with vision, and I'm pretty sure I started with you with vision. Yes. I think it's really important that it's difficult to do what you can't imagine. It's really difficult to accomplish what you can't imagine. I think sports, it's relatable to sports, but I guess anything, it makes it far easier to have a clear picture of the future. Really, because as an entrepreneur, your first couple of years are really ambiguous. You're not really sure that you're making the right choices. But if you have a clear picture of the future, you can always bring it back to, are these choices feeding into that vision? It's, Think and Grow Rich again, Napoleon Hill. Clear vision, and are my actions leading me to that? So I usually start, and people sometimes have a hard time with this, is really clarifying their vision, but that's where I usually start. I think that's really important. I think you got to like people. I run into business owners a lot that are like, they say, this is what I say. They usually say, I like my business, but I'd like it more if I didn't have employees.
Oh, shoot.
And I'm like, that usually like gets me to recoil. I'm like, oh man, I love people, man. I want more. Like, give me more.
Yeah.
So I think you gotta like people if you really want to grow. If you're an entrepreneur, like you want a lawn business, you don't need to like people that much. You know, pool business, you don't need to like people that much. If you're in a service industry, which is most of businesses in America, you're in some sort of service.
It all is.
You should like people. Figure out how to figure out how to like people. If you don't now, you know.
You know what's funny about that is that, you know, I'm somebody like that where I like to be to myself a lot.
Yeah.
But as I got, you know, older and I, you know, just being observant, you start realizing that's what life's all about.
Yeah.
It's each other. It's about connection. It's about growing with each other. It's not about you just living off in the woods somewhere.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess there's very few people that can, but you know, if you really think about it, why is there so many different types of people? Why are there so many people? It isn't for us to be separate. It's for us to figure it out, build, and you know, learn things together and stuff like that. So
for real. No, I totally agree. That's been a journey for me because I come from similar. You know, I definitely would test as a high introvert. But this type of stuff, like it fires me up.
Right.
When I think about people, I think what is transformed is before when I think about people, I think this is going to be difficult or this is going to be maybe not as productive. Now, when I think about people, approaching people, it's like, this is exactly what I'm here for.
Right.
This is exactly what I'm here for, is to love on people, you know, in some way, shape or form. Grocery clerk, whatever.
Right.
You know.
What would you say is one of your biggest lessons you learned in your journey of entrepreneurship?
The biggest lesson was ego. I had this is a massive mistake. Massive mistake. I had when I started the business, I had a piece of software that a couple of friends developed for me, and they did it. And part of the deal was they owned the software. They owned it, but I leased it from them. They did it basically for free because of that. So actually, going back to my origin story for the business, I decided to leave and then immediately got on the phone with a couple of friends that I knew from high school that knew how to develop a web system. So we developed an online workflow system for what we do, which is pretty complicated. But it took about a month to get something that I felt like I could go actually talk to clients about. And fast forward a few years after that, it's just 2 years after that, it was starting, the system was starting to crack, and it needed some major infrastructure rebuilds. It was a database that needed to be rebuilt, and we're calling them on a daily basis. Hey, it's breaking down. And they're like, well, you have to replace the infrastructure. And I was like, hold on, I don't own it. I told him that. I said, I don't own it. So why do I need to? I'm paying you lease payments, you know, so that you can keep it up. Well, they were like, yeah, we just can't do it. Just can't do it right now. And that got me. It got me to the point that I was like, all right, I guess I got to look for something else. And there was no equal type of software out on the market that could do what I needed it to do. So we went with the next best thing. And that decision has cost millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars. All for, I'm sure, for a reason, for a higher purpose. I'm confident of that.
Right.
But my pride per se was like, I was mad that they weren't taking care of their own thing. But by me saying, all right, bye, I ended up not taking care of my thing. I couldn't take care of my business the way I wanted it to. So had I just said, you know, not been necessarily mad about it, but been like, tried to find a solution. Yeah. Like really tried to work with them and say, hey, okay, well, let's find a solution because it's important that I work with you. It's important that you work with me. I just was like, let's go, let's move, let's change directions. And it was bad.
I did not know that.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of know where you're going with the system, but man, that's crazy. I didn't know that.
So that, and then part of that, I guess, on the same line of ego, when we were looking at new systems, we settled on one that we were like, okay, this is likely the one that we're going to go with. And we had a fairly large team at that time, and I tasked everybody with reading all of the documentation. And I walk into the meeting with my managers, my leaders, and I say, hey, who read the documentation? And nobody read the documentation. And I was like, well, I read it, but you guys are the ones that are going to be working in it. So if it sucks, you're going to be dealing with the consequences. You hear what I'm saying and how I'm saying it. Like, I'm like, I'm telling you, this has cost us millions and millions of dollars.
Wow.
Millions of dollars. That type of, just that way of me being like, well, guess you're gonna have to live with it. I'm like, so yeah, that's probably the biggest mistake. Ego messes you up every day of the week.
That's probably where bring me a solution comes from, because I know we've been taught, like, don't bring me the problem, bring me the problem and bring me a solution as well. So we've been trained. If we have an issue with something, if something's not working for us, we have to bring the problem. Yes, bring it up and leave your emotions out. Mm-hmm. And also, but bring me the solution. How are we going to fix that?
And I learned that I can't take anything for granted. Mm-hmm. I can't. All the details are important. Even at the level I'm at now, if I can't touch the details, I need to trust somebody that they're going to take care of the details.
Right.
No detail too small.
How do you check that ego though? You're at a place now, you don't have to deal with it. You're just like, I ain't got to deal with this no more. So how do you still keep that intact?
I think a high level of empathy, and you practice over time. It takes a lot of practice. And again, I reflect, it's been 20 years. So there's a lot of reflection now that I have, which I'm glad to give. This is why I'm here. I'm really glad to give this. I was talking to somebody about this recently, and when you're able to recognize your emotions, when you're able to recognize your emotions and your thoughts, when you have a high level of self-awareness, then you can check yourself. Like, I feel some kind of way, getting a little warm and fuzzy. Something's going on here. If you can recognize that, but then your ego says, okay, how do I make sure that I'm right? Your ego says, how do I make sure that I get in front, that my solution is the best solution? That's what ego says. The opposite is, okay, what's the best that needs to happen for this whole situation? Like, what is the best outcome for this whole situation? And in a room, it's a lot of my job now is like just personality management, and in our executive meeting, it's a trick to stay. It takes a lot of practice, but it's a trick to stay present. Okay, we know what the topic that we're discussing, and somebody will speak up, and I'll listen to their words. And then again, this happens over time. I will analyze, okay, where do I think that came? If something doesn't feel right with the way somebody's saying something, okay, where did that come from? Being empathetic to where that came from. Is it something that needs to be addressed? Because where is now the result of that person speaking up? Where is that going to end up in this team? So observing the team dynamics and watching the flow of thought and the flow of conversation from like a third party perspective, right? Like I'm out of my body, so that I'm not feeling some kind of way. It's taking practice. There's some people, we all know this, right? Like our families are the best at pushing our buttons. So I got family, right? And in my, not real family, but in my business, in my executive team, we all know how to push each other's buttons. And it kind of happens naturally, or you're just being fun, you're just playing around, but like, okay, I know where that person came from. I'm not going to get pissed. I know where this is going. What's the big deal?
Right.
Learning
It's
people's
hard.
personalities.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is the hardest thing about being an entrepreneur?
Oh boy. Discipline, self-discipline.
That's good.
Gosh, I think, like you gotta do what's right in the moment. You gotta do what's right for understanding, again, kind of what the right move and the right action is. What's the right even emotion? Having that high level of self-awareness and being able to do that has been, that's been key. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's take a break real quick. A bathroom break. All right. So we're back. And we got a couple more questions, man, to pick your brain with. But did you want to add something else to the last thing we just talked about?
I think you asked me what was the hardest about being an entrepreneur.
Yes, sir.
And I said it's discipline. And I think too, it's discipline to do things you don't like doing or you don't want to do.
Right.
I think, that's the crux of what discipline actually is. But I was saying how I didn't really appreciate like infrastructure, company infrastructure. And we were talking about, being prepared for the show, right? Yeah. You be prepared to show up, then your infrastructure has got to be tight, right? You got to do that pre-work. So I think the hardest thing for an entrepreneur is to do the things they don't like to do or don't want to do. My sister started a podcast and she's been really successful. I think, tens of thousands of listeners now.
Nice.
So financial coaching for millennials, the price of avocado toast. That's what it is, in case,
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So in case entrepreneurs are looking for that, but her and her husband do it. And she came to me for advice when she started. And I said, look, the hardest thing for me is to continue to keep going, is to keep grinding on creating like content and being your clients, your subscribers. They want to get a consistent, continuous message, right? Yeah. And they want to get fed and they're expecting to get fed. So you got to keep showing up. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
You said that too, Jay. When we first started, you were like, we just got to go. We just got to keep doing it. We just got to keep putting content out there and the listeners will come. We just got to keep putting it out there.
Time always, I think that's the difference in everything is like the time.
Yeah.
Like, everybody always starts something and everything is so easy. Everybody makes everything so easy, but it's like, who's going to keep going?
Yep. That's true.
That's going to be the winner.
Yep.
And so through those times of despair, through the times when you're tired, through the times when it's not making sense, this ain't even making me money, or this ain't doing this, are you going to keep going?
Yeah. I've heard it said, and I love this, that the purpose of business is to stay in business.
Yeah.
And I love that. I love that because,
that's one of the reasons why I wanted you two to connect, because the two of you to connect, because you remind me a lot of Dan's drive.
Right.
When you're tired, you keep going. And we've seen him push through when he's sick, and we have to like, Jay, no, we don't have to meet. Like, get some rest, take care of yourself. But it's his drive in getting this business off the ground and, going, and to where, you're a visionary as well as Dan, so.
And when we was talking, we learned a lot about, we think that a lot alike, you know what I'm saying?
For sure.
Yeah. I don't just put them on to anybody.
Dan is like the 10-year advanced Jay.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, I mean, you guys are doing good stuff. I mean, you're doing good stuff. This is, you can see it. And that's all. I get your vision. Trying to create this space for this community. And that's important.
Yes, sir.
It's important, man.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
You talked a little bit about a role model early on, being like in your father.
Yeah.
Anyone else that you can look up to as a role model, mentor?
Yeah, kind of as an introvert, I never was into cartoons and fantasy and that sort of thing, and I think kids need that. And so I think as an adult, I didn't have any of that growing up. I was a very kind of serious child, very serious child. So I find a lot of inspiration with just with books and with people from history, I like biographies and that sort of thing. So I hate to say that I don't have a lot of like human mentors. But there's a lot of them. There's a lot that have come and gone kind of in and out of my life. The Small Business Development Center here in Tulare County, I got hooked up with them, and I had a guy, his name was Brian Moe, if he's listening, and he was really good. Like he it's one funny story. He goes, I was like, Brian, I need money. I just need money. I need to figure out how to get financing. I need to do that. And he goes, here's what I want you to do. He goes, I want you to make a sign that says, dumb business owner needs money, and go out on the corner. And I was like,
oh man,
I guess I'm not listening real well, Brian.
Wow.
And he just gave it to me straight.
Yeah.
George Beardsley was with us for several years, and he's just a mastermind infrastructure guy. And that's where I gravitated towards. My business partner, Jeff Pierce, has been a spiritual mentor for me. For as long as I've known the guy. And I can't say much about that without getting too like kind of teary-eyed about it, because he's been a really important person in my life.
He's amazing. We all love Jeff.
I get inspiration from my coworkers a lot. Try to find, I believe that every human interaction we have, there's something to learn from.
Right.
Every single one, so I just met your assistant here. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, what can I learn from her? But yeah, my coworkers, my great people on my executive team that I really look up to and learn from all the time. Yeah. My dad was just key, pivotal, still is. My brother's has a really successful business. Yeah, I try to find inspiration everywhere.
I like that.
Yeah, I get it from like just quotes from people on Instagram and stuff like that. I try to find inspiration when I need it. Yeah.
And at what point did you talk about success with us a lot, and you ask us some pretty hard questions too about success. And at what point did you look at Gemini and consider it a success?
I knew, we kind of talked about early employees, and I was nervous. I've been always nervous that they're just going to go. Like I've developed them, done my best to develop them into the professional they are, and they're going to go. Sorry, repeat the question again.
At what point did you look at Gemini
success.
and consider it a success?
Yeah, when we were in business, probably 4 or 5 years, even then I was very concerned that this could all be over. We're in a highly regulated industry where they literally could flip the switch on us. And that happened actually in 2011. We went through a 5-year, really, really difficult, significant season. Very, very hard. And that's a really long story. But at that point, it was, prior to that, I wasn't sure that I could say that we were successful. We had a lot of debt. And then going in 11 to, 16, 17, that 5-year time frame, that was a very scary kind of time where things I wasn't sure was going to pan out. There was, though, a time, I think it was in 18. No, it had to be like just a couple of years. And I made it my goal to convince employees that Gemini was a place that they could call a career. And that to me was the level of success. That to me sticks out when I think about what success was defined as, when employees started to say, yeah, I can make a career out of this place. Right. That to me was like, okay, all right, now not. And I actually spent a whole year. That was my goal. That year was okay. How do I promote this place? I felt confident, but how do I promote it and get people on that same page?
And that's game changing for me personally too, working with Gemini, because it's coming from someone that did not go to college. I have been able to call, and I always kind of felt funny about calling it a career because I'm like, I didn't go to college. I didn't get a degree. I don't have a career. I just have a job. Yeah. But you really, that is the game changer because when you saying that over the years, we want this place we want you guys to make this a career. Yeah. And if not, then we will give you all the tools and resources to learn to go somewhere else, if it doesn't fit for you. But for me personally, it's definitely a career. I have learned so much and I've always really felt bad. Like, man, I didn't go to college, but then I remember you telling me like, I didn't go to college, back then. I mean, I think you did go to college though now, right? No? Okay. So, but just, having that place to call like, yeah, this is my career. Like it's been a game changer for me personally, just even my professional and personal growth and development.
Yeah. What is your definition of that, of a career versus a job or like?
It's somebody asked me that recently and I think it's because I think you can decide that anything is your career at any time on that journey. It's a level of commitment that I think really sets that apart, makes that defining answer. This is my career because I've committed to doing this for, the foreseeable future. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So in that story, I wanted people that had been with the company for a long time to finally start calling it their career. And then I wanted people that were just hired. I wanted them to start calling this their career. Yeah. But I had to get to a point where I was like, I'm confident, like financially stable. Yeah. We had a stable market share. That's kind of important. I think it's something that entrepreneurs can learn is to understand what the market is that they're selling to, and then quantifying that market and understanding if I have 5% of that market, am I going to be stable or 10%, 15, 20%. Stable market share kind of means that you got repeating clients, that you have your name is something that people can rely upon. As a company, I felt like we kind of reached, we were over that 20% is kind of my mark is the 20% market share. So we were over that 20% market share. I was like, all right, we're stable in this market. Now I can go make sure that my employees, from an infrastructure perspective, feel that it's stable, understand that it's stable, and they can call it their career,
Yeah.
And over the years, it was a little shaky and a little rocky. There was some times where we were like, man, I need to spruce up my resume. I don't know. I mean, that's just the transparency we get from the company, just letting us know like where we're at, but Dan was always like, hang in there,
We're in a really, really difficult market. And I anybody wants to talk about that, that's cool. It's really difficult. I could tell you 5 different reasons why you don't want to be in our business.
Yes.
Really? Is it because there's a lot of other businesses? Is it real competitive, or what is the reason?
It's less of that and more of just the nature. We're highly regulated, meaning the state knows exactly what they regulate and decide everything that we do and try to do. And then they give really vague guidance too on a lot of what we do. What that means for us is we get paid by insurance companies. We don't get paid directly by the attorney that orders our services.
Right.
So the insurance company is like, they're looking at our invoice and saying, why should I have to pay for this? Well, the law tells them they need to pay for it, but there's also laws that say that they may not need to pay for it. Right. So the accounts receivable cycle in our industry is a monster. It is really difficult to figure out and find stability. So that makes it really difficult. Selling to attorneys is very difficult too.
I bet.
Their whole job is to tell you why you're wrong, to tell you that they know more than you, that, they're trained to flex and be, argumentative.
Mm-hmm.
So, we have to figure out how to disarm them, make relationships and convince them why. Again, they're trained to argue. So they're going to try to convince us why we're not the right answer, and we got to try to convince them that we are the right answer.
Wow.
Working with attorneys is It's a good one. It's hard. It's hard. It's the reason, yeah. There's a reason that there's actually not a huge competitive pool, at least in our area. We're top like 5 companies.
Right. Smaller
companies, they deal more local and usually high on relationships from a local perspective, which we have no problem with. We're now at this size, top, the top market share in our industry.
Yeah.
And that has its challenges too. So
yeah. What advice would you give to a young Dan that is an introvert or artist, somebody that just likes to stay to himself but still trying to figure it out in life and but they have big dreams of entrepreneurship? What would be some key advice?
You got to make the leap. That leap of faith is a hard one for most folks.
Right.
That leap of faith. And I've talked to people that are trying to be entrepreneurs, and making that big jump is not, it has consequences. It for sure does. The way I looked at it was I could go get a job. Like, I'm an able-bodied human. I can go get a job selling something, or I don't know, cleaning something, whatever the case may be, mowing somebody's lawn. Or I could try this and try to be an entrepreneur. I needed to know the financials. I guess these are some tips, right? You got to leap. You got to kind of make a decision. Don't make it blind.
Right.
You want to be informed. You want to make that informed guesstimate that you're going to be able to pay your pay your bills, etc. Don't be silly about it. Be informed. Be really informed. As another tip is just to try to really educate yourself and make that leap. I would also add that tip about uniqueness. Again, entrepreneurs, they hold themselves back because they kind of think that maybe it's already been done, or somebody's already doing it. And or somebody's going to copy me and do it better and surpass me, that sort of thing. But have confidence that nobody's ever going to do it like you. Nobody is going to do it like you. The flavor, everything, and everything matters. You know what I'm saying? From the logo to how you talk to people, it's different. You're not nobody's the same person as one another. So have confidence. The one thing though, is that this is a double-edged sword, right? I would tell myself to relax, is to kind of, is to not worry, I think, about the long term. I was pretty, I don't know, always like a little paranoid, and I think that was maybe good to be a little paranoid about the long term. And I think if I would have relaxed and let those emotions kind of wash away, I would tell myself, you're going to be fine. Right. You're going to be fine. Everything's going to be fine. What I notice about entrepreneurs is their goal is to be above average. Just having those mentalities, just knowing that you want more and just doing a little bit more, you're already there when it comes to just being above average. Next would be to just kind of qualify that, have a really strong vision, and then that discipline to make those things happen.
Nice. What's a good book for that person?
The E-Myth is a book that I give. Michael Gerber is a book that I give usually most young entrepreneurs. It says once you've made that leap, this is how it's supposed to work. That's usually one of my first books that I give people, the E-Myth by Michael Gerber. There's so many other ones. I'm kind of a reader, so there's a lot of other ones.
That's a great book. I love that book.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And then reading it, I was like, man, that is me. In the beginning part, it really puts you like things in a perspective, and you just like, wow, like I have to change that. But it gives you the answer too, right?
Yeah. And I think really understanding whatever you can do to gain more self-understanding, I really, I try to practice meditation. I practice prayer. I have a morning routine that gets me set. That's usually that's a tip that a lot of if you read like top 10 tips for entrepreneurs or business owners, take a moment to center yourself.
Yeah.
Often. That's the tip I'd give Dan, because now I'm learning now how to be present.
Right.
And that's been something that I had to learn probably the hard way. I was way too just serious and future focused.
Yeah.
And that didn't allow me to really kind of enjoy
like right now.
Present. And even enjoy people,
Yes. Yes.
So. Thank you for bringing that unique topic up, because I was listening to you and I'm like, man, the sales part of things, sometimes, as an early sales person, you get caught up on those veteran sales guys and gals out there, and it's a competitive market that we're in. And I used to get caught up on, well, they've been here for 20 years. They've been doing this for so long, I'm never going to get that client. They're so in tune with that person, right? But not realizing that no one's going to, no one's not me. I'm That's me, right. And I bring my own uniqueness. And I think just even it's a good reminder, even just for our team too. It doesn't matter, what the competitors out there. It's, no one's going to do it like you. No one's going to talk like you. No one, is going to bring that flavor like you bring it. Sales
is one of those things that I learned and I love. And because it's such a challenge, as an introvert, it's such a challenge to break that. If you see me in social situations, I'll be in the corner or in the back. Like, you won't find me. Yeah, I prided myself early when I was like in high school, and nobody knew who I was. I was like the guy in the back that nobody. So I had to force myself in sales situations, and I really learned to love how to just break the ice, just get in. I'd go to a conference, and I remember this conference where it was like a banquet afterwards. So everybody's in suits and ties, and I'm just nobody. I know I'm nobody. I get that. Get my suit on, and I'm like, all right, I'm just going to go talk to people. And I just put my way into almost every conversation, just kind of, I'm Dan, and I had to force myself to do that because it was my job. Again, it goes to kind of that discipline, right? I knew that I needed to do that for my business. I had to do that. There wasn't really any other option. That was my job at that point. Right. Don't be afraid as entrepreneurs don't be afraid to do everything. You really should try to figure out how to do everything in your business. Everything.
And then like how in the EMF talks about, but then you'll know the outline of that job.
Exactly. Right. I'd call it, you're dangerous enough. Yeah. Dangerous enough to know when somebody's BSing you. People, they're manipulative. Some people are.
What about a book for a person who is in business already, or not even in business, just working at a job and has a career? What's a great book for that person?
So I like, because I have employees and I talk to them a lot. Usually, so Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Poor Dad is a fantastic. Yes. That was pivotal. Now, it makes it really clear in his second book. Most people don't read the second book.
I read the second.
Did you?
Yes.
Oh, dude.
Yes, that was a great book. Yeah.
So it points out that there's 3 ways to develop wealth. Okay. Through business ownership, through real estate, and through paper, stocks and bonds. And if you're an employee, maybe you're not going to be a business owner. And entrepreneurship is hard, right? The statistics are way up against you, right? But you can be happy. I know it. I know that I've been there too. You can be a happy employee contributing to your life, making decent money. You still have access to real estate and stocks and bonds.
Yes.
And you can create wealth, and you should create wealth out of those things, right? And figure it out. Find a way. Be entrepreneurial there too. If you're spending all your money on going out to dinner, and none of that money is going into any assets whatsoever, you're not getting ahead at all. You're not contributing to your 401k, or you're not even it's so accessible now to invest in stock market through like Robinhood, and it's so accessible.
Yeah.
The S&P 500 has an index. The statistics show it is literally like you put a certain amount of money in the S&P 500 index. This is the top selected 500 money-making companies in the stock exchange. You put $100 in that, every couple months or something like that, you're going to have a return that's way better than, Applebee's, to be honest. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, that for people that are just trying to grind through life, they want the simple, whatever. I think the understanding the basics of money is so, unfortunately, it's undertrained. It's under-taught in America.
I have people tell me sometimes, I don't want to do that. I just want to be, and I was like, that's fine, but still you have to know the basics because you only have yourself to blame at the end of the day, right? Yeah. And then you can secure things by, like how you said, just download a Robinhood or another app and just invest
spending
a little
money
bit of money,
on being in debt is a nasty cycle, man. I've been there. Oh, there's a terrible cycle of being in debt, not getting yourself out of that. Got to learn I had to learn this late. Like, how do you budget? I mean, how do you budget? How do you make sure you spend a little less than you make so that you're not constantly in debt and then getting out of debt? I mean, fortunately, I've done that. I've gotten myself out of debt, but I know that people are out there that suffering from that black cloud, over their finances. Okay. Well, what are you gonna do about it? Go to Applebee's again, or are you gonna pick up a book? Yeah. How much did it cost you to go to Applebee's? All right. Well, how many books could you have bought with that? All right. And, hey, mental health is great. But you can do other things. There's other things, right?
Right. Yeah, that's good. I like that.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, that seems like you have any more questions?
Yes. No, I mean, I do, but as we want to respect your time.
Yes. I know we've been here for a minute already.
We have, and we can go on and on, but it's just been an honor and pleasure for you to be here. Like, definitely. I can't wait to go back and listen and pull all the nuggets.
Yes.
There was just so much to take in. But thank you so much.
Yeah, we appreciate it, man.
Definitely appreciate it.
We was just talking on our bathroom break, and I was like, sometimes I have to really put in perspective, because Gemini sounds like a prominent, like I think of a business, right? I'm like, okay, yeah, you're a corporate guy, but it's like, no. This is the guy that started it. He's an entrepreneur, so that's major. And there's a lot of jewels that you said on this interview. And we really appreciate the time, Dan, because you didn't have to do this, man.
We're all just people, man. We're all just people. You know what I'm saying? That's the best. What we leave here, what we leave this world with, what our legacy is kind of how we treat people. So I mean, I don't know. It's hard to argue that. So that's where I've kind of aligned my life is to serve what God's been given, what God gave me, and that gives me more than going to Applebee's.
Yeah. Are we going into a motivational business together? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Is that what we're doing? We buying books, Dan? What we doing, man? Come on, man.
To be honest, like I love this idea, the fact that you guys have this platform and there's so many different perspectives. I'm just giving one flavor of leadership of what this looks like. There's so many more out there. People need to find what's unique for them and live that, find that vision. Serve that vision. One
of my favorite things you used to do for us was when you had the book club, this man would be like, all right, y'all, I'm doing a book club, 6 a.m. It was like, I think on Mondays before like 3 other meetings we had to be on that day. But he's like, show up, if you want. He didn't make it mandatory, obviously, but he's like, this is the book, this is the book we're going to read. You guys read it on your own. We're going to come and talk about it at 6 a.m. in the morning on a Zoom call. And it's just a place for us to learn and to grow. And that is just something that I just thought it was just like amazing. So that was one of the things I remember you did.
And I remember when you told me that story. I mean, this is before I even met you. She told me about that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And because I always take little things like that. I'm like, man, it's the consistency.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And when you say when you want to see something happen, and I understand that more and more as I'm in business. When you want something to happen, I always look at, can I commit to that right now, right? How much, where's my capacity at, right? Okay, I can't take that on, but I know sometimes I think that's one of my problems I have is sometimes I spew too much out. You know, we talked about that. You get so excited, you just talk so much, but it ain't in my scope right now, but I am talking about it, but I'm like, I can't handle that right now.
Yeah. And that goes with that vision, right? So it's hierarchical. Like what's the most important? I mean, you got your life, we got our kids, we got to take care of our kids, we got to take care of our family. That's core, you know, that's important, right? When we choose to do something, are we sacrificing that commitment? And we don't want to do that.
Yeah. Top 5 commitments, guys.
Yes. Well, we appreciate you.
Yes.
Once again, Dan,
absolutely.
we appreciate you.
My pleasure.
Yes. And thank you guys for tuning in. I hope you guys learned something. Comment what you have learned, what you picked from this. You know, let's start a conversation. Let's start a conversation about this. You know what I mean? And we appreciate you once again, Dan.
Yes.
My pleasure.
Until next time. Yeah.